Let's get this out of the way. Metroid Dread is the best Metroidvania I have ever played. Now, I'm biased. I've been playing Metroid since I was 14, when I picked up a copy of Metroid Fusion for the Game Boy Advance and was introduced to its brand of slow-burn sci-fi horror. I've played every game bar Samus Returns, I've read the Metroid manga, and since Fusion never got a sequel, I ended up writing my own just for fun. I'm telling you all of this stuff because I want to be honest about my biases, but I've also played plenty of other Metroidvanias, and as attached as I am to the series, make no mistake, I won't be playing favourites or pulling my punches in this review. The genre has evolved massively in the last few years. Games like Hollow Knight and Dead Cells have been pushing the genre forward, while Metroid has rested on its laurels, and the series has a lot to catch up on. But stick around, and I'll explain why I think Metroid Dread is queen of the Metroidvanias. Metroid Dread starts out with some brief cutscenes, and before long you're thrown into the action. While the introduction does a decent job of catching you up to speed if you've never played a Metroid game, this story builds on everything that was laid down in Fusion, and I am very happy for that. Dread is extremely sparse with its story, but when the story does happen, it's significant. I won't spoil anything as I want you to experience these incredible moments for yourself, especially if you're a long-time Metroid fan. But what I will say is that, as somebody who has been waiting for a sequel to Fusion for near 20 years, this is everything I could have hoped and dreamed for. While this game has a good story, don't expect anything like Other M. Metroid Dread prefers to portray Samus through her actions, and just holy fuck, look at this shit! If you've seen the trailers, you'll already have had a taste of just how badass Samus acts in this game. Her body language just oozes competence and confidence. This is canonically the Samus Aran who has been through every Metroid game, and it shows. Samus keeps her arm cannon charged, keeps her cool even when the player is freaking out, and doesn't take shit from anybody. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You can see how Samus looks, what about how she controls? Well, if you've not played Samus Returns, the closest comparison would be Fusion, or better yet, Smash Ultimate. She's no longer the floaty lady of Super Metroid, she's snappy, responsive, and does exactly what you tell her to. The main change from classic 2D games is that instead of diagonal aiming, you now have free aiming. The skill ceiling for using free aiming is much higher, and the game demands that you get used to it quickly. This kind of becomes a theme. As you progress through the game, the upgrades come thick and fast. I won't spoil what those upgrades are, but I was seriously impressed by just how many there were. Unlike previous 2D games, Dread is able to utilize a full modern control scheme, and thus every button is mapped to something. This is absolutely great, but at a certain point you begin to get upgrades so fast that you have almost no time to master them before the game demands you use them. Every button is mapped to something, and you will need to use them all constantly, sometimes to the point of causing hand strain in boss battles. But later. Let's talk about that later. The most significant changes to Samus are part of your arsenal immediately. The slide and the melee counter. The slide is fun traversal and a dodge maneuver all in one. It's a great addition and you'll be using it a lot. The melee counter is both a counter and a simple melee attack. You can use it while standing, running, or sliding, and it is not optional. In the early stages of the game, you'll be able to get away with relying only on beams and missiles, but if you don't start countering those bosses, you're going to be taking a lot of damage. If you do land a counter on the other hand, you'll not only regain some health and missiles, but deal a shit ton of damage. Not every enemy can be countered in this way, and some are trickier than others to counter. But if I had one problem with the counter system, it's that at times, against regular enemies, it makes your beams and missiles redundant. It's that strong. Against most normal enemies, I could use 10 super missiles or just one melee counter, and get health and missiles for my trouble. It's risk-reward, reminding me greatly of Bloodborne's counter system. Basically, parry is king in this game. Against bosses, landing a counter at the right time will start a quick time event where Samus will run and jump around the enemy. During this time you can mash the beam button, fire missiles, or even charge shots. And can I just emphasize, Samus looks like a fucking badass during these moments. There are some moments that are so ludicrously cinematic that it feels like you're playing a God of War game. Exploration is fairly well balanced between linearity and openness as far as the series goes. These zones are interconnected with multiple entry and exit points and even teleportation points that open up new shortcuts. While I generally found myself funneled in a particular direction, intrepid explorers have already proven that there are plenty of alternate paths forward. Without spoiling anything, the lengths Mercury's team have gone to reward players who sequence break is seriously impressive. Speedrunners are going to have an absolute ball with this game, and I can't wait to see what crazy shortcuts they uncover. The community of players who enjoy trading secrets and hidden scraps of forbidden knowledge are going to be mining this game for years. But I will say, if this is your first Metroid game, welcome to shooting random walls. Yeah, that's back, and it's as egregious as it's ever been. Early on, you'll need to shoot walls that look the same as any other in order to progress, and this is likely to trip up players both new and old. I expect modern, or even decades-old games to give me some kind of hint that a wall is breakable, but Dread is staunchly anachronistic in this regard. I mean, I get it for hidden upgrades, but the critical path? This early on? Really? Maybe Mercury's team were trying to pad out the game time, I don't know. But you'll quickly get used to this and start not trusting a damn thing. The way Sakamoto intended. You may also be familiar with backtracking in Metroid games. It's part of the formula, and I personally enjoy it. Finding the route forward by exploring an old zone with a new upgrade is part of the fun. It gives the player a bit of agency, and canvassing old areas with new abilities to collect upgrades is a nice break from the difficulty of the main path. Meditative, even. The only thing that bothered me while backtracking is that shortcuts are sometimes deliberately gated when, design-wise, there's no real reason to. Example, I can get here, and I can get here, but I can't go through the shortcut unless I go around the long way. And similarly here, I can go to both locations, but I need a later upgrade to open up the shortcut between the two. It's an extremely minor quibble, but why make backtracking more tedious than it needs to be? By the way, good luck 100%ing this game. You'll be familiar with this if you've played previous Metroids, but some of these upgrades are insanely tricky to get. While the Shine Spark feels easier to use than ever before, these Shine Spark puzzles are as hard as they've ever been. On the other hand, the game is a lot more forgiving about telling you where a hidden upgrade is. Like Prime 3, you know what percentage of upgrades in an area you've found, and you'll have a rough idea of where to find them. This I appreciate. But while we're talking about the levels, can we talk about the environments for a second? They are very pretty. You'll see dense jungle, vast water areas, and creepy facilities. Monsters jump and swim through the background, making it feel like the world continues beyond the trappings of the 2D space. There's a nice amount of variety, though nothing absolutely crazy like the Sky or Phazon worlds of Prime 3. By the way, the map? Mwah. Perfect. When you encounter a door or block which you can't get through, the map will mark it with a question mark. Then, when you obtain the necessary upgrade, those question marks get updated, telling you that it's something that you can now get through. Quality of life. You also have markers, which I found invaluable as somebody with ADHD. When backtracking, I'd use these markers to plan my destination so that when I inevitably got sidetracked by some shiny upgrade, I'd be able to remember where the actual fuck I was trying to go. Oh god, I haven't even talked about the EMMIs yet. Before we talk about difficulty, let's talk about the EMMIs. Because to me, EMMIs are what give the game its name. Metroid has always had a creepy ambience, and Fusion more so than any other. In that game, you lose your powers and are stalked by the invulnerable Terminator that is the SAX. There are moments in Fusion where you cower in silent terror as the SAX walks by. Get spotted and you'll flee in blind terror. These were scripted sequences, but they were amazing. Dread takes this idea and expands upon it. The EMMI are not shackled by scripted sequences. In fact, they will surprise you with their tricksiness at times. While my terror was most pronounced at the beginning of the game, when their behaviors were more unpredictable to me, there were still moments towards the end when they got me good. Ah! God damn it! Fuck! I died to EMMIs more times than I can count. Okay, I've put it off as long as I can. It's time to finally talk about the elephant in the room. Difficulty. You may have gotten these hints throughout the review, but Metroid Dread is not an easy game. It's never unfair, but it is absolutely unforgiving of mistakes. No amount of hunting down energy tanks will make it easier. This is a game where you either get it right, or you go back and do it again, and again, and again. You may say, but Greg, previous Metroid games were hard. No, not this hard, not by a long shot. I've played every Metroid game bar Samus Returns. I've crushed Nightmare, Yakuza, the Morph Ball Boost Guardian, and I've killed Dark Samus more times than I can count, but none of them came close to this. With all of the additional abilities at your disposal, you have a lot more buttons to press, and the game has a much higher skill ceiling as a result. Now, that's awesome, and part of the amazing combat system of this game. I don't want to change the base difficulty. I think it forces the player to really engage with the game's systems, and watching speedrunners at their full potential will be incredible. But would it really be so bad to add an easy option? There's already a hard mode which adjusts damage values, so it's hardly much more work. If you're a hardcore player who has no problems with the difficulty, great! Enjoy the game as intended. But there are many gamers out there with disabilities or simply not much time to play games. Half the original audience have kids now, and it's just a damn shame to gatekeep those loyal fans out of a franchise they've been able to enjoy for decades up until now. Seriously, every single damn Metroid fan deserves to enjoy this story. I feel very passionately about that, which is why I'm so vehement about this one thing. Patch it in, Mercury Steam. On the plus side, the checkpointing is far more forgiving than in some previous entries. You won't be forced to run back from save rooms, so you can focus on the bosses and mastering those attack patterns. Though if you die outside of the boss room, well, you might have to recollect some upgrades. One last thing I want to talk about is the music. The tracks are a heavily layered mix of creepy and technological, with a healthy dose of desperation, especially in the boss tracks. This music definitely accentuated my dread, and I can confidently say that the composers brought the feel of Metroid up to date with the present. SQ is a standout boss track with its frantic violin, and Golzuna with its gross biological synth. So, that's my review. I don't really believe in arbitrary numbers. I'd rather use my words to tell somebody if they should play a game, but if I had to give this an arbitrary number, it'd probably be 10 out of 10. This game has the best upgrades, the best map, the best combat, and the best story out of any Metroid game, hands down. And it proves that 2D games can be every bit as AAA, every bit as worth the price tag as 3D games. I spent about 18 hours on this game, and though a lot of those hours were dying and retrying, I'd do it again. In fact, I will be doing it again, on hard mode. If you're that kind of gamer, it's well worth the price tag. I have some quibbles about shortcuts and some things that are slightly tedious, but none of those would ever stop me from playing the game. At its highs, Metroid Dread dials itself up to 11. I was freaking out at the plot twist, I was screaming at the EMMIs! And now that the credits have rolled, I can't wait to see what Metroid Mercury Steam come out with next. But just patch in some difficulty options, so that every Metroid fan can enjoy this masterpiece of a game. Also, would you kindly put all your devs in the credits? Thanks. Thanks for watching. I'm Egregious fucking Games, and if you found this review informative, leave me a like or a comment below. Thank you. I've got a few more Metroid Dread videos in the coming days, including a discussion of the lore and what's next for the series, so if you're interested in that, click that subscribe button. Other than that, thank you for watching and have yourself a great rest of your day.